Today on Cherry Pickin', we're continuing to take my 1969 Mustang Mach 1 and making it the ultimate daily driver. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Cherry Pickin'. Today, we're going to continue to take my 1969 Mustang Mach 1 that I got running in the last video and tore it down the drag strip at a blistering 15.8. And we're going to continue to turn it into my ultimate daily driver. Now, this thing has a long way to go, but it's come a long way. It's been a while. It's actually January of the new year, so I think it's time for some well-needed upgrades. But first, let me show you around this car and all of the things I've done since taking it to the drag strip in October. I've done a few things to make it better, and today we're just going to focus on a few little things that are really going to turn this thing from an okay driver to an all-around cruiser daily driver. So let's do that. All right, now if you watched the last video, you'll know that I was able to take this 1969 Mustang Mach 1 down the drag strip at Pomona In and Out drag strip. And that is a historic drag strip that I was lucky enough to be able to go down in this car and actually made it up and down no problems. We actually didn't have really a single issue in this car. It was extremely warm, so I was worried about temperatures, but I had put that fan shroud on last minute, and honestly that helped a lot. But since then I've been driving this car a lot, not daily, but pretty close to it, at least every single weekend, and if not, during the week as well. It has been nothing but reliable. I have had a few small issues. The week after Power Tour, I actually took it back down to Pomona for the swap meet, and I actually hauled parts in this thing, and I had people asking me the entire time, hey, are you selling the car? Are you selling the car? Why'd you bring it? I wasn't selling it, I just needed to bring parts in it, and it was the only car running at the time. So I took it down, and I had a little incident. My rear muffler was actually blowing exhaust up into my rear floor pan, and it got so hot from the drive down there that it actually cooked my rear seat and lit it on fire. You'll see a picture of that now. It was pretty bad. I was pretty smoked out for a long time, and I was breathing in toxic fumes for quite a while, but it's okay. That's all taken care of now. I pretty much chopped the mufflers off, so I didn't have to worry about that anymore. But I've done stuff to it since, so let's look at some of those things. So the first thing you'll notice are these 12-spoke stock wheels that now have brand new tires on them. I kind of had to do this because, well, I was tired of having to switch my Magnum 500s that are currently on my wagon back and forth on this thing that was on nasty wheels. So I finally got tires for this thing, and so currently I'm just running the stock setup. And I actually cleaned them up, chrome polished them, and they turned out really nice. They're a little dirty right now because I've been driving it, but they kind of make the look of this car. They are the original wheels for a Mach 1, and so we've got the beauty rings and the hubcaps, and it looks great. So I'm running this for now. I'll eventually switch back to the Magnum 500s that are on there once I find a good wheel set for the wagon. Moving on, I actually swapped out the old side mirror pedestal. The old one was kind of bent, and I believe this is the original one on the car. You may be able to see there's some silver jade remnants right there, and this one's not all bent up, so it actually straightened the mirror. It used to sit really wonky. It's still a little bit raised upwards, but it's not too bad. And I also glued in a convex mirror so that I'm able to see out of this mirror. From factory, these things were not exactly the most visible. They hadn't quite figured out passenger side mirrors, so that's a huge upgrade. I'll go ahead and show you. This is my back right now. It's actually extremely dirty, but if I lift this guy up, you'll see there is no rear seat in here, and you'll actually see where it caught on fire. Real nice. So I'll just fold that back down. One of the things I did actually very recently is I got all of my interior lights. You can kind of see that one. There's one right here. All of the interior lights in this car now turn on. That was a big deal. I actually only just did that like 2 days ago. I had to replace the fuse and get all new bulbs because every single one of them was burnt out. I have also rebuilt the automatic shifter mechanism. All the bushings were completely blown out. All of the gels were missing, the light bulb was off, so I rebuilt it pretty much entirely, and now it works great, functions great. The neutral safety switch still needs adjustment, but it's not bad. As you can see, the radio that was in here is out. It is kind of out temporarily because I do have the stock AM/FM radio that belongs in here, but I need knobs for it. I don't know if I showed this in the video or not, but I did put on this AC dash. I got this thing for a screaming deal. It does not fit well. It is actually shrunk and a little bit too small, but it sits in here well enough, and 3 or 4 screws hold it in. Plus I've got the AC vent registers that they do not remake. You can actually see where it's not fitting super great right there. I'll eventually get a better one, but for now it works. Continuing on the stuff on the outside of this car, I actually did chrome polish the front bumper, which obviously can only go so far because it's missing chrome, but it does look nice and shiny. And I went ahead and cleaned up this stainless piece down here. I also added this hood trim right here just to complete the look because really it looks weird without it. So I went ahead and put that on. Still searching for a good hood. This one is unfortunately pretty creased. But going back into the driver's side, one of the things I did that was kind of necessary, I actually took all of the door panel off and put in new outside felt fuzzies, weather stripping fuzzies for the windows, and I also rebuilt both mechanisms on both sides and just greased everything. They're not very well adjusted, and that's something that we're going to be doing today, but they roll up and down much better. I actually went ahead, and you can't really tell, but I did clean these floor mats like crazy. I had to take some Simple Green, and I scrubbed them like 10 or 12 different times to clean them up because they were really nasty, and they're still not great. I dirtied this one up, so it's pretty dirty right now, but it's better than it was. So yeah. One of the other things that I did in this car, I actually got basically every gauge working except for my oil pressure gauge. I am not entirely sure if the alternator gauge actually works, but it seems like it works, so we're just gonna pretend it does. And I made sure that all of the lights turned on. Unfortunately, I've got a bad circuit board, so that's something that I'm gonna have to fix in the future. I did add in this rim blow. However, it does not work, and it's actually probably ruined because of the way it fit in here. I think I have to clean out the steering wheel much better because, as you can see, it's sticking out quite a bit over here, but over here it really doesn't stick out at all. And so something's wrong, and it now doesn't work at all. So if I plug in the horn, it's just always going. So got to fix that, but that'll be a future problem. I finally kind of mounted my oil pressure gauge down there. It's only mounted with a single screw, but it works, so, you know. And the final thing I did to this car was I changed out the heater core. This was very recent. It was kind of a necessary thing to do. I wanted to have heat, and it had worked, and then I hooked it all up, and it was working okay, and then it wasn't working okay. It started leaking everywhere, and that's what prompted me to end up cleaning the floors really good. But I was able to get one and install it the next day. It took me about 2 hours. I didn't rebuild the box at all. All I did was replace the heater core so that I have heat, and it works okay. It's not great, but it works. I can't complain. I do have an issue. I'm gonna have to rebuild my heater controls because something in the box is sticky and it actually bent that upper control. But for now, I have heat if I need it. I have also put in this new rear view mirror. The old one you could not see out of, so I just put this one up. It actually took 2 tries because you just got to get that glue just right. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've done so far since October, along with just trying to make this thing drive as well as possible. Oh, there is one more thing actually that I just did. If you can see under here, it might be a little fuzzy, but there's actually a muffler. There's 2 mufflers right there. I actually just got those mufflers put in. This car was straight piped for probably a month and a half, and it was really loud. And I actually took a trip down to Huntington Beach, which is about 80 miles for me. I went ahead and visited Wiley and Steve Dulcich on their meet and greet on the beach, their bonfire meet and greet. Met a lot of great people. It was nice to meet all of you and see you in person and see all your cars. It was unbelievable and just made me excited to actually keep going on this thing and make it better. And ended up driving at night, and that's kind of where it leads us to in our next what we're doing today. But first I'm going to show you how it sounds. Let's just hop in here. Now this is cold start. I haven't started it this morning. So we'll give it a pump. Let's see if it starts. There it goes. And it has a fast idle because it does have a choke, but you can hear it.
I still see new stuff pop up like on an Instagram reel or a TikTok.
And there goes my last thing that I totally forgot about, but I'll tell you about right now. As the idle comes down, I'll turn it off. Still have great oil pressure. That was about 60 pounds. Actually, it was over 60 pounds. Can't complain about that. The last thing that I totally did to this car that I forgot to even mention is that I actually installed a little Bluetooth amp, the same one that I put in my 67 F250. It is hiding right underneath the center console at the front. And pretty much all I did, and this is going to make people upset, but they have to realize I did not put these here. There were already holes cut in these quarter panel pieces, and all I did was just install some speakers I had lying around. They're just Kenwood. They're actually marine speakers, and they work pretty well. They're a little bit big, so they're a little tight in there, but I just took out the old Craigs from 1975 and installed these, and just did a quick wire on the amplifier. You might be able to see some of it back there, and it's so small and little, it fits underneath that center console piece, and it hides entirely out of the way. And so I was able to have my tunes. Doesn't sound great, but it's better than nothing. So anyways, let's get on to what we're doing today. Well, today we're going to be basically fixing some things that I noticed very distinctively on my long journey to Huntington Beach. And I didn't actually mention, but I drove to Huntington Beach for this Bonfire Car Show on Saturday night. And then Sunday basically spent all day driving down PCH towards Dana Point, making stops along the way, and driving through all the beach cities and just having a good time with this thing. Saw a guy in a really nice 68 GT500 drive by. We both waved at each other, and I felt very underwhelmed because my car looks like this and his was nice and beautifully restored. But that's not the point. Today, we're going to be fixing those things that I noticed driving Saturday night. The biggest one being my headlights. These are, I don't even know where these headlights came from. They're not all original, but they are dim. And in fact, one of my high beams went out, so I don't even really have high beams. They're not adjusted very well, and they're just plain dark. So we're going to be doing 2 upgrades to make my headlights better. The first, most important, being that we're going to convert these headlights to H4. H4 beams is basically a bulb that goes inside a glass housing, and it's just a lot brighter and a lot easier to get parts and upgrade. If I wanted to, I can get brighter bulbs and put them in the housings. Not a big deal, and I don't have to replace the whole housings, just the bulb. This is going to make a dramatic difference. This is also going to basically turn all of them into high beam, low beams. So I should be able to have low beams all 4 on all the time, which just adds a little bit more light. H4s, that's the biggest thing. The next thing that we're going to do to help aid those lights, because if we were just going to put those in, it might be a lot for our headlight switch to handle. Because if you didn't know, on old cars, your headlight switch basically handles all the current of your headlight bulbs. So to remedy that, we're going to install this rewire kit that basically adds 2 relays for high beams and low beams and connects up to your battery and just to a headlight socket, and basically replaces all of that power and draw that's coming through your headlight switch that really doesn't handle it well after all of these years, and puts that power into relays. So your power is coming directly from the battery into a relay and into your headlight rather than through your headlight switch. This is going to dramatically help not only with the load usage and potentially frying or ruining your headlight switch, which by the way they're a little bit hard to get now if you want original ones, and the reproductions just aren't as good. But this will also actually help your headlights be brighter and not have the notorious flicker dimming that happens when you're driving. I've experienced it a little bit in this car where at high RPM especially, I will notice that they will just flicker in and out. So that's going to fix it. So that's the biggest upgrade we're going to try to do today. Along with that, I'm going to hopefully get some new window rubbers installed and readjust the windows. Driving in this thing is great, but the windows have no rubber around them and they squeak against the metal, and I'm honestly worried they're gonna pop, but I also can feel that cold air just rushing through. So we're gonna try to remedy that by putting in new roof rail rubbers that this is where your window seals against. I have not seen a single video on YouTube explaining this, and so hopefully someone out here gets some help as I try to figure it out and probably fail. Now I'm not gonna do the whole thing. There's foam that goes on the top end and it's a whole rail that's self-tapped into the car. I'm pretty much just gonna do this part because right now this is all I need just to make sure that wind and air and sound does not just immediately bleed into the car. And then after that, I've got some other small window rubber pieces for the trim that's physically on the window. That'll help seal it up even more. And then I'm going to readjust the windows so that they're actually fitting correctly and not cattywampus or anything. And then after all that, we're probably going to kill mat a bunch of stuff. I wasn't going to because this car needs a lot of body work. I don't care. I'm gonna kill mat a bunch of stuff so it's a little bit quieter, a little bit nicer of a ride in here. Like I said, I'm driving this thing daily, and it's fun to have a nice, rattly, windy, breezy, loud car sometimes, but when you want your wife or your partner or someone else to drive in it, you kind of want it to be a little bit nice too. And I've got other things that make it rough. So let's get into it. Let's start with these headlights. Now I'm not going to go over the full situation on what you have to deal with these headlights if you have to clock them correctly because the high beams are clocked differently. Lucky Costa had a whole video on the Disgusting about 4 years ago detailing this H4 conversion, and so I'll let you go to his channel. He'll explain it a lot better. I'm just going to install these things and install this relay harness and be done with it. First things first is we're going to want to open our hood so that we can access this front panel and also unplug our battery. Yep, that's a motor, and runs pretty well too. Okay, and first thing we have to do is take off this front plastic grill piece, and because my car is hot garbage, it's only held on with 2 bolts. Hood latch, and nope, that's it. If I hadn't said it before, I'll say it now. This car was pieced together. Take this off. Okay. Oh, probably should unplug the battery. I'll do that first. I can just unplug that high beam, that nasty high beam, and I think this is the one that's burned out. And if it wasn't, it doesn't look burned out. Oh, wait. Oh, did they change these? Well, I'll be, in the words of Vice Grip Garage, dipped. This is my high beam, and I assumed I would have to modify it so that the notches match correctly, but it looks like, how do they do that? So what I'm looking at here is that I don't have to do any modification, because that sits upright. So I don't know if they changed their design somehow, but these bolts are identical. So what I've gathered here is that everything that I ever thought was wrong. Not surprising. These fit upright, so I don't even have to do any modification to these buckets. They are in the correct orientation, up and out for high beams. That makes my life a lot easier because that means these are plug and play. So now let's just hook up the wiring and then put all this back in. All right, well, it looks like I'm not actually gonna have to modify my high beam buckets at all. The headlights seem to clock perfectly fine. So what I am gonna do now is run our wires, which I'm just gonna run it along where the other headlight wires go. Down here. And this is super simple, because all you have to do is, if you really want to, you can modify this and plug into the actual harness, or you can just plug into the headlight bulb, which is the super simple, easy thing to do. Okay. Tuck this back around now that it's not being used. And now for the fun part, where we put it all back. Now we can plug these lights in. Okay, gotta take the spring. All right, I got one in. Now, time to do 3 more. Let's do them. All the headlights are back in. Obviously, I'm not gonna be able to adjust them until tonight, when I can actually sit down and get them to the right height so that I'm not blinding people in the road, because that is the one thing you want to worry about. Now that we're turning everything into a low beam and a high beam, these inner high beams only go up and in, and so you want to make sure that they're adjusted correctly as a low beam. And so, yeah, so you don't blind people. So now's at the point where we can hook everything up. All the lights are plugged in, they're all grounded. So I'm gonna go ahead and hook the battery back up, and we will check and make sure that everything functions properly. And if so, then we're good to go and we can move on. We will find out. And we have lights. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but they are all on. Let's turn the high beams on. Can't tell if that made any difference. We're nice and warm, that's for sure. All right. Well, I definitely got to work out some other grounds and things in the car, because I'm definitely getting shocked, but that was something that was happening before. But there you go. There's your H4 conversion. That was really simple. The wiring harness, it was pretty good quality. I'm a little worried at the size of the wire that supplies power to everything. But other than that, it went together really easily, and it's done. So now, and adjust them tonight. So moving on, let's go to the next thing. Okay. And now it's a few days later. I went ahead that night and adjusted the headlights as best as I could, really. I don't have a great wall to actually do this on with straight. It doesn't matter. They're adjusted. They work so much better. It's kind of amazing how much better they actually are. They were pretty bad before, and I realized that part of that was that they weren't adjusted super well because I couldn't tell because they were so dim. But now they are significantly brighter. They definitely aren't as bright as I really expected them to be, so I'm a little surprised by that, but they are better, and I can see at night now. Moving on, we're moving on now to one of the biggest things that's going to help this thing become a good daily driver, the seals, specifically the door seals and the window seals. If you know anything about hardtop cars, you know that one of the hardest things to deal with is getting all of the windows and seals and door glass, everything, to actually seal and create somewhat of an airtight bond, I guess. And so that's kind of what we're doing here. The biggest thing is that there's this one giant sweeping roof rail seal that these cars use to seal the top of their windows on. Now, it's not necessarily the best design, the way it's designed, because it encapsulates the quarter window and it goes to the front, but a newer one will work better than an older one. So I actually went ahead and purchased all of the door seals and window seals that I could in order to do this. I may not put all of them on right this second, because actually I still don't have some of the door seals, but I have this seal. And there's not a lot of videos on YouTube that go over how to take this apart, so I'm going to show you so that you can know how to do it. One thing I'm going to do, or that I'm not going to do actually, is put on this foam strip. This is basically 1/8 inch foam sticky backed strip really where it needs to go and why it exists on this car is you actually put it on the back side, the upper portion of the stainless steel channel that gets self-tapered into the actual roof of the car. Now, that creates a seal from the stainless piece to the roof of the car, and it's super thin, and it basically just gets squished. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm not taking the channel off. All I'm doing is taking out the old rubber and putting the new rubber in so that we have at least a good door seal. So if we come into our back seat area, and yes, I'm currently missing my back seat because, well, it caught on fire about 2 months ago. Actually, a week after Power Tour, I drove back to Pomona and the seat caught on fire. So anyways, that side's already done, and you may or may not be able to tell by the new seal, plus I cleaned up the quarter window a little bit. And what you have to do is there's a 3/8 bolt here, here, back here, and there may or may not be one supposed to be back here behind the fold-down seat. I have a fold-down seat, so this is obviously going to be different if you don't have one. However, whoever previously owned this car and worked on it kind of put all the panels and everything back somewhat temporarily and didn't completely put all the bolts back in. So I only have the 3 that are accessible right here, and then there's supposed to be a 3rd screw way over there, but I only have 1 and then 2, and this whole panel comes off. And basically once that comes off, you have access. You have to take off this front cover piece, which I have new ones coming, but mine actually aren't too bad. They're usable. And then you take the screw off here, and then your quarter window does have to come out. So let's go ahead and take all this off so that you can actually see what it's going to look like, and then we'll go from there. So like I said, you've got to take out these 3 bolts. Now, my panels aren't in the best shape, but they are totally usable, and they already had a cut hole that somebody put speakers in a long time ago. And so I actually decided that for now, I'm just going to kind of leave them and use them. I'll clean them up. I do have another set, but for now, they have a speaker hole, so I'll just utilize that while it's still here. Oh, and there's also a screw at the front here. I don't know, I think my other side was missing one. But we'll go ahead and take that out. And all of these screws are probably the incorrect ones. As long as they did exactly what they did on the other side, it should pop right out. The other thing that you might have to be aware of is that this does tuck in underneath the sill plate back here. My sill plate's actually cut on this side, which is interesting. I did have to loosen the other side. I do not have to do that for this side because someone already cut it. So now this whole panel, I'm just gonna get and basically lay down and cover you. Watch out there. So I'm just gonna lay this panel down. I'm not even just gonna disconnect my speaker, but now you can see basically the interior panel of the car. This is your outside scoop, and what we need to get to for the quarter window is these 2 bolts right here. And then also, we'll take this off right now and I'll show you that. Undo the 2 screws here. And then also the screw holding the seal in. Oh. We're gonna save these. This just pops right off. And now you can see basically the quarter window spring tensioner, which we are gonna loosen a little bit. Just enough so that we can slide the quarter window out. Now, as you can see, there's these 2 bolts right here that we're gonna take out. Okay, and as you may or may not have seen, this bracket actually just kind of dropped, and we're just gonna continue to feed it down until it pops off just like that. There's your bracket. And now our quarter window, theoretically, well, it's not entirely true. There is one more thing that has to come off that I didn't have to do on the other side because it was broken, but I will have to do on this side. There is a little tiny wire that holds the entire quarter window from popping out too far. And on the other side, mine was broken. This side looks like it's not, so we're actually going to have to undo the bracket that it's attached to. Now, this thing is a little fun to get out because you actually need to get your weather strip out of the way so that this thing can kind of pivot and drop. And just like that, you had to pivot out of that top piece, and it drops out. So I'm going to go ahead and actually clean this thing up like crazy. Glass polish around it to clean it up, some steel wool and chrome polish to get rid of the rust staining and clean up the chrome, as well as cleaning up the pivot points, and then it will get re-greased and put back in once we're ready, once the seal is in. So now it's time to take out the seal, and that's actually pretty easy. There's one screw at the very front, bottom of the door frame. That one's easy enough. However, there are three 11/32 nuts that basically hold this entire bottom piece on, and you have to go in from the inside and take off all three of them. I had two on the other side. I have no idea how many are on this side, and it looks to be, oh, it looks like I have all three. So I have all three on this side. Once those are off, this whole thing will just get peeled out, and we'll clean the channel pretty quickly and get it prepped for the new seal. So let's do that. So you might have a self-tapper there behind the thing, keeping it tight. But now this whole thing gets yanked out of here somewhat carefully. And it's probably going to come out in pieces if it looks anything like mine. Now, unfortunately, a little bit of my channel has actually been crunched over time, so I'm going to see if I can kind of bend that back and fix it. Of course, it's in a really awkward spot because the new weather strip will not go in here correctly if this is all messed up and crunched over like this. And of course, it's stainless steel, so it's kind of springy. Now, one of the things that can happen when you're working on an old car like this that you're all probably pretty well aware of is the while you're there syndrome. And basically your while you're there syndrome is, well, while you're in there, why don't you fix this and that, and so on and so forth. And the problem with that is that it can lead you down a very dark path of trying to continue to work on things and extending your project timelines out further than you, well, want to. But this is a common problem for all of us old car mechanics. And while I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and clean up this chrome piece on the bottom because, well, I'm in here, so I might as well do this. This is actually chrome on the bottom section. The upper portions are stainless. This lower portion is chrome for some reason. It's a lot stiffer and polishes up nicely with some chrome polish. Wipe it off, and it looks a whole lot better and a lot shinier. All right, now we're pretty much ready to put in our new roof rail door window seal, whatever you want to call it. And I have a few tips and tricks for you after doing one of these on the other side. Now, here's your door seal. If you order a good one, which I think this is, not sure, but this is the better version. It's not the super cheap version, but it's, you know, pretty good, I think. I don't know, we'll see. What you're gonna get is a left and a right side, and that's very important because there is a left and a right, and they only go one way. So you wanna make sure that you're putting the right side on. And basically you have a stiff rubber-like material for this entire quarter window section. And then once it gets out of the quarter window, it kind of turns into more of a foam-like rubber that's much softer and plush, and it's much easier to get in the rail. So this whole rubber section here is a little tight to get in. And what you're gonna wanna have and use, for one thing, is this 3M black weather strip adhesive. You don't have to use black, but black tends to work the best for me. Plus it's also black and the gasket is black, so might as well not see it. From the factory, the stuff they had was pretty much this yellow color, and you can see it basically all over the doors. On this, you don't need to use it the entire way, and some people might tell you not to. I'm actually going to use it virtually the entire way. It's not that crazy to rip this stuff out when you're really trying to get it out, and you can use heat to actually pull it out when you're taking it out, when you do decide to do that. And we'll get this thing knocked out, and then we get to move on to putting the rest of the weather strip on this car and putting the quarter panel back and maybe adding a little bit of sound deadening so it's a little bit quieter in here. So let's do that. Went ahead, got this seal in, also cleaned up the window kind of as best I could. This one didn't clean up as well as the other one, but man, the sun is right there. But what I'm gonna do is we're gonna drop this window in, and I'm gonna go ahead and take some white lithium grease, just put a little bit in the top here with the hinge point. Oop, a lot, and then put some down at the bottom of the shaft, and then we're pretty much gonna snake this guy in here. I have to move this rubber piece at the bottom, and we pretty much want to come in to get, you got to get the top in first. Like I said, you got to move this rubber piece out of the way, and then swivel the bottom and kind of wrap it around. So we're back in place, but now we have to, let's move this chair out of the way. Basically, you have to come in from underneath. I'll actually set those down. And it's really awkward, but you have to walk in the pivot point and just kind of slide it up. And now we'll take our bolts. Sorry, the sun is in a terrible spot. And we'll kind of pull this back to get them started. And there is an adjustment to this. You have a little bit of room to adjust it. I'm just going to put mine exactly back where it was before, because that looks like where it was factory, and it's good enough for me. And it's the next day already, because time is fleeting. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and actually start by changing the oil in the Mach 1 because, well, it's driven probably close to 3,000 miles since I've got it running and driving. And they've definitely been probably a hard 3,000 miles. Now, this may be a little early for some people. This may be right on time. I don't really care. This motor sat untouched and undriven for close to 30 years. So I'm just going to change the oil just to be safe. Plus, while I'm at it, I'm going to take this driver's side valve cover off and check all of my rockers because we have a clatter that won't go away. And it went away when I cut the pipes off and made it straight pipe for a few weeks. And then once I got some very flowing mufflers put back on, it immediately came back. And I actually think it's lifter chatter. But I don't know. So we're going to take the valve cover off and do some inspecting, see if we can figure out what it is. Hopefully find a loose bolt on a rocker arm and just get lucky. I don't know. But we're going to change the oil, and I'm also going to go ahead and take off our hood scoop and hopefully put new emblems on our hood scoop, as well as getting our hood turn signals working, because that would be pretty cool. So we're going to do kind of a few different things. So anyways, let's change the oil. Well, and the oil does look pretty dirty. So I think this was a good thing to change it. I'm not going to show you the full oil change because, well, you've seen an oil change before. You empty the oil, take off the filter, put a new filter on, put the drain plug in, put new oil in. Simple as that. Didn't look anything crazy. We which is good. I didn't explicitly see any metal chunks, although I still have to pull the pan out and really look. But I am gonna go ahead and try to take off our valve cover here, which, oh yeah, totally ripped the valve cover gasket. Now, we're gonna go ahead and check our rockers here. So far, I don't see anything unusual. Let's keep looking. Well, it's later, and I'm dressed differently, but still goes on. Couldn't find anything underneath the valve cover that was unusual. None of the rocker arms or push rods felt or looked odd. I did tighten up the furthest one back, but it wasn't loose. So, seems like we may have a lifter that is just, you know. But that's okay, because that just means that we'll be able to put a cam and lifters and rocker arms in eventually. So, yeah, anyways, we're going to go ahead and move on to less important things, but still haven't done my door seals. Going to ignore those for a while. Going to actually go ahead and try to see if I can get my hood scoop turn signals to work. No idea if there's anything wrong with them, other than one of the bulbs was for sure broken, the other one was not, so no idea. Never looked at it. We're also going to, while the hood scoop is off, replace our nice little engine callouts. As you can see, the original one that was on here fell off, and we have a nice new one to go on, and it's actually physically a little bit larger, so I don't know if that makes any difference, and if the holes will be in the right place. But I am eventually going to be running a Ram Air hood anyways, as soon as I get a hood that I can cut up, or one that was already ready. So this is kind of just for funsies. So let's take the scoop off, which is going to be loads of fun, because I know that at least 3 out of the 6 studs are stripped, if not more. So let's do it. Yoink. Pop. Oh, and it's nice and hot. So I was smart enough to soak them in a little bit of PB Blaster while I was away. I actually went ahead and watched Nosferatu. Anyways, go ahead and get our tool roll out here. And what are we looking for here? We're actually going to want a 1/2 inch. But before I actually go too far, let's actually put some new bulbs in these indicator lights and just see if they work. So it looks like we have the right. So that's the right blinker. Go ahead and nothing for the hazards, which I don't know if they're supposed to go off the hazards or not. I'd assume they're the same circuit, but nothing. But we have right. We do not have left. So I'm going to go ahead. Actually, we'll just keep that going and see if it's just... Okay, I did figure it out. It is just bad grounding. There's a little bit of rust on the inside of the thingamabob. So I'm going to go ahead and just try to scrape out a bunch of that. Yeah, there you go. I don't know if you can see that, but it's working now. Now, daylight is fleeting, but, you know, this is the important stuff. And that one came off. All right, let's just see if we can even pull the hood scoop upwards. Hello? Now, why would you be stuck like that? All right, and there's our hood scoop, which, oh yeah, there were studs already replaced and fixed, and nice. Now that we got the hood off, we have access to our emblems right here. We also have access to our lens housings, which I actually needed access to because I have to clean them up because I painted them. So let's do that. And while we're here, I'll probably also get all this dirt off and wipe this down, just so it's nice and taken care of. So we're gonna go ahead and actually, we're gonna take off these studs first. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace these now because looks are more important than functionality. I think we all know that. I'm gonna ruin this thing before I even get it on. Okay, and now we take off the indicators, which are just 2 screws, which one of them's missing on one side. I'll have to find. Oh, and they're special too, of course, because why would they be normal? And there's our indicator light. Wow, there's our indicator light that obviously, as you can see, needs to be cleaned up. So I'm gonna take some steel wool to this, try to clean off the lens, probably with some acetone or something, and we'll put it all back together, slap the hood scoop on, and put our new bulbs in and hope everything works. We went and cleaned up and got our pieces back. They're not perfect, but you know, they'll work. And we're gonna real quick, we're gonna go ahead and spray down and clean off the dirt off this hood as best we can. Of course, using a microfiber towel may have been the worst choice for this. We can set our scoop back on. Which is going to be you just gotta hit it in, you know? I did not like that sound. I think I knew what it was too, which makes it even worse. I'm sure these are loads of fun to get up in here. There's that one. And it works! I see it. Now we just got to get our other side, bring it around here, and pop that in, and then carefully tuck our wires, which I believe are supposed to be held up by something. Don't know. Move all of this stuff, and let's double check if they work. All right, and as you can see, we have our new 351 callouts on the hood scoop. They are a little bit bigger than probably factory, but I don't care. They say 351. And we have our cleaned up turn signals. So if we go ahead and turn a left turn signal on, boom, left turn signal, boom, right turn signal. And I'm gonna guess this isn't gonna work, but yeah, hazards are funky on this car. As you can see behind me, the sun is going down, so I will catch you in a second with more. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and end it here. I got a lot of stuff done on this Mustang in this video. This is actually over the course of a few months. Most of this was done a while ago, but work and other things going on. I've been daily driving this thing like crazy. It's getting better and better and better and becoming a better daily driver. And well, we've got a lot more coming, so stay tuned because next week's video, the whole front suspension is being blown out of this thing and basically being rebuilt from the ground up. So stay tuned for that, as well as I did source a hood for our shaker hood conversion, so that'll be coming very soon as well. And I have been daily driving this thing. It's been awesome. So yeah, I don't know what else to say besides that. Stay tuned on the channel because we actually do have a bunch of videos coming out in the next few weeks with new cars that you haven't seen yet on the channel, as well as other projects that aren't necessarily car related. So stay tuned for that. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate all of your time that you put into watching these videos. It takes a lot of time to make them, so thank you very much. If you want to, leave a like, a comment, subscribe even if you like this type of content, because there's going to be a lot more coming. So thank you again, and see you next time.